Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor and privilege for me to be here to present in front of such a distinguished audience. Let me introduce myself. 20 slides with background information, some of my previous works and international activities might explain what I did until now. Year 2023 was the 50 years anniversary of starting study architecture as a freshman at the architectural department. I studied and practiced in the field that I have run, and I have worked continuously since I established my own firm in 1986. I have had chances to work overseas as a dispatched expert by the government, once in Ethiopia in 2005 and in Uzbekistan as an appointed expert by the Cultural Heritage Administration of Korea last year. This is the competition proposal. Economic efficiency was pursued in materials by unifying the length of rafters of different sizes. Though it was not selected in the end, I tried to suggest the best solution for the modern-day economical hanok, performing arts hall and exhibition space in front of the World Heritage Site, Changdeokgung Palace Complex. Adaptive reuse project in Cheongdam-dong, a hanok is installed in the tilt-up method. The module was maintained, but the pillars were arranged so that the load was bearing on the concrete beam, and a courtyard with a light ceilings was added. This was proposed as a way to recycle abandoned space in concrete buildings. This is Gwangdeoksa Buddhist Temple in Gwangju, Gyeonggi-do. The spatial arrangement is modern, but each building is built using traditional techniques. An effort was made to establish a hierarchy of buildings and spaces, and to make the space feel larger by enshrining a very small Buddha image in the main hall. Proposals for master plans, and these are sketches when I was in Germany and in Ethiopia. There is almost always a conflict between the appropriate proposal and competition-winning proposal. It is really hard to take on a project. I took part in many seminars and conferences talks, such as Heritage Talk in Philippines and Heritage Restoration Site Visiting in Germany. This is lunch during the boat trip to a remote restoration site. Isn't it nice? I was invited to many lectures overseas. This one was about the Korean landscape pavilion in the midst of nature given in Paphos, Cyprus. I lectured on the same theme in other cities in Germany. As a result, a Korean pavilion symbolizing the desire for national unification was built in Berlin in 2015. This was presented at the 2010 Wiesbaden Summer Arts Festival in Germany, held under the theme of garden. A small pavilion on a hill by the sea maximizes nature. I took this photo and used it as the cover of my presentation. This was part of a hanok design training course for professional architects. I guided architects to the hanok site to help them better understand the remaining 19th century palace hanok in terms of materials and techniques. The Prime Minister's Citation Medal for Devoted Architects was awarded on the Architecture Day in 2014. I think it was because of the sacrifice of time and energy for the hanok design training course for professional architects. 한무숙 Literature Museum in Myeongnyun-dong, 종로구, Seoul, received Acacia Award for Architecture in the category of Restoration and Adaptive Reuse in 2011 and 2012. An exhibition room and seminar room were created while maintaining the maximum height and appearance. The seminar room floor was lowered to secure interior space. Cheongansa Buddhist Temple in Eunpyeonggu, which won the Architectural Design Award for Hanok Excellency in 2011, built on exchanged land during the construction of the redeveloped apartment complex. The design couldn't change the total floor area after building permission, while providing a resting space for neighbors, single-story Hanok's rival high-rise apartments in Grangdae. In 1993, I designed Beijing The Willows premier international leisure club in Huairou near Beijing, China. With Singaporean colleague, I was commissioned to this project as the first Korean architect after China opened its door. The Korean version of designing Hanok, the Korean Organic House, Contemporary Challenges, and Seoul's Historic Works is a report on my previous walking tour Seoul 2007 and 2008, which I organized with the Seoul Foundation for Arts and Culture. Korean translation of design theory of Chinese classical architecture and In Praise of Shadows of Japanese Aesthetics to Korean readers with the translated version. I actively participated in the international meetings and seminars as a co-director of the work program for heritage and cultural identity at the International Union of Architects Congress in Seoul 2017. I made architect statements at the World Heritage Committee meetings on behalf of International Union of Architects twice, in Krakow, Poland in 2017 and in Baku, Azerbaijan, 2019. UIA, the International Union of Architects, selected 10 women architects from the 5 regions to celebrate International Women's Day 2021. I was one of the 2 representing the Asia Pacific region. Thank you very much for your attention. And let us start the presentation of today's topic. I appreciate being given this opportunity to share my view on the further consideration of Joseon Palace architecture with rear garden. Though we live in Korea, we have very limited information about Korea. So ahead of a main subject, I will introduce a little bit about the Republic of Korea. The Korean Peninsula lies in the middle of Northeast Asia, flanked by China to its west and Japan to its east. The peninsula is 1,100 kilometers long longitudinally and 300 kilometers wide latitudinally. Korea is a presidential republic, and the capital city is Seoul. 70% of the entire territory is mountainous. Mountains over 1,000 meters above sea level make up only 15% of the mountainous areas, which mountains lower than 500 meters account for 65%. The total area of South Korea is 100,364 square kilometers. The coastal line is 2,413 kilometers. Climate is subtropics of the northern hemisphere, and populations are almost 52 million, with almost 50% are living in Seoul and vicinity. The population is about half male and half female. Korea has a unique language and its own writing system, Hangul. Hangul is composed of 14 consonant letters and 10 vowel letters. In the national flag, the white background symbolizes the Korean people's brightness, purity, and peace-loving characteristics. The taeguk symbolizes harmony between yin and yang, which embodies the truth about Mother Nature. All things in the universe are created and evolved through the interaction between yin and yang. As you see here, national anthem, national emblem, national seal, and national flowers. Let us start with subject and purpose. I used to serve as a special architecture guide at the Changdeokgung Real Garden with Nakseonje complex as part of a pilot project by the Cultural Heritage Administration of Korea. On May 17, 2024, the Cultural Heritage Administration of Korea will be reborn as the Korea Heritage Service. The topic of today's lecture is a World Heritage Site, Changdeokgung Palace Complex and its rear garden, with a special focus on water, pavilion, and hanok. As background information, let us share the followings. First, Korea's natural and social environment. Second, traditional Korean culture, Korean garden and pavilions. Third, World Heritage Site and Korean national heritage. It will help you to understand why people built this kind of architecture traditionally in this country. About the environment. Firstly, natural environment. 70% of the land in Korea is mountainous. However, most of the land is relatively low, as typically seen in aged terrain. With these geographical characteristics, villages and individual dwellings formed with mountains to the back and rivers to the front. The mountains not only protected houses from the wind, but also supplied firewood. The river provided drinking water and agricultural irrigation. The climate in Korea is moderate. In summer, the southeasterly wind blows, while the dominant wind in wintertime is the northwesterly. The South Korean climate is normally long, cold, and dry in winter, and humid, hot, and short in summer. Due to this duality in the climate of Korea, two contrasting floor structures of heated floor room and wooden floor hall in a house appeared. Secondly, social and cultural environment. Throughout the history of Joseon, theories of the yin and yang and five elements school, Pungsu, Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, and other philosophies left a lasting imprint on the process of housing evolution. The principles of Confucianism have dictated family and social lives in Korea. Confucian theories spawned a strong patriarchal family system in Korea, which led to the tribal village, which was formed of patriarchal blood relations. Ancestor worship and hospitality in the core of sacred obligation in a family. People erect a separate family shrine in their homes and provide a guest room in the men's quarter. Since Confucianism called for the separation of the genders, the women's quarters were detached from the men's quarter. As the house protects humans from severe weather and provides a resting place, the hanok is the most appropriate architecture considering the geographical and climate features of Korea. As we see the remaining 5 palaces from Joseon Dynasty and Jongmyo National Ancestor Shrine and Sajikdan Altar, we noticed that it was an agricultural society at that time. The 3 major principles played an important role when Hanyang, present Seoul, was served as a capital city of Joseon. They are the metaphysics of Neo-Confucianism, the theory of Taoism with Pungsu, and the teachings of Buddhism. Pungsu is Korean geomancy, which was frequently dealt in China as feng shui. As many people know, the names of the mountain in the north and south, Baegak and Mongmyeok, are adopted from the Taoist concept. The names of the mountains in the east and west, Tarak and Inwang, are adopted from the Buddhist concept. And finally, the names of the four main gates to the city, Hungin-jimun, Doneumun, Sungyemun, and Sukjeongmun, come from the five Confucian constant virtues: benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and trustworthiness. For more background information, let us move on to review the traditional Korean garden and pavilion so that we can understand better for the palace garden and pavilion. Traditional Korean garden and pavilions can be classified as, firstly, the garden and pavilions at the palace complex. Secondly, the garden and pavilions at Confucian and Buddhist academies. Thirdly, the garden and pavilions of scholars, literati, and private residences. Traditional Korean garden and pavilions are part of my previous lectures regarding the garden pavilions architecture many years ago in Germany and other countries. We deal with the pavilions at the palace complex. Then let us review Changdeokgung Palace Complex as a World Heritage Site and as a historic site in Korea. World Heritage Sites as of 2023 are shown here. 1,199 properties, including 48 transboundary sites from 168 of the 195 state parties that joined 1972 World Heritage Convention. Regarding OUV of World Heritage, first, look at how Changdeokgung could be included in the list of World Heritage Sites. As you can see here, outstanding universal value, so-called OUV, should be proved to become a World Heritage Site. The three pillars of the OUV are, firstly, meet the criteria, secondly, integrity and authenticity, and thirdly, protection and management to maintain OUV. Changdeokgung Palace Complex met the three pillars of the OUV. First, meet the criteria 2, 3, 4. Second, integrity and authenticity. And the third, protection and management to maintain OUV. For providing these requirements, the 19th century court painting 동골도 and layout drawings 동골도형 played an important role. I myself painted a partial copy of the court painting on silk in 2021. Can we shortly review the current heritage classification in Korea? Now let us see the status of Changdeokgung in terms of Korean national heritage. I made this table based on the Heritage Protection Act in Korea and kept revising it. It was last amended in 2023 and valid through May 16, 2024. And new heritage classification in Korea. From next month, the concept and system of Korean heritage will be changed. I made this table based on the Framework Act on National Heritage and follow the new acts that will be officially enacted from 17th of May onward. The major changes are the name of the government body as from the Cultural Heritage Administration to Korea Heritage Service, and the name of the heritage from Cultural Heritage to National Heritage. Designated National Heritage will be classified as 3 different categories: cultural heritage, natural heritage, and intangible heritage. Each category is managed by its own act. Let us go to the main topic of today, a stroll through 600 years of Korea's history and architecture, a World Heritage Site, Changdeokgung Palace Complex, and its rear garden. The Changdeokgung Palace Complex was constructed in the early 15th century. The principles of Neo-Confucianism, the ruling order of the Joseon dynasty, are well realized in its architecture, in harmony with the natural topography and features of the site. As the keeper of the 600 years of Korean history, Changdeokgung remains one of the most beloved heritage sites of the Korean people today. The Changdeokgung Palace Complex has been designated a World Heritage Site as an outstanding example of Far Eastern palace architecture and garden design, exceptional for the way in which the buildings are integrated into and harmonized with natural setting, adapting to the topography and retaining indigenous tree cover. The following is an overview of the key aspects of the spatial organization and some of its symbolic significance. The salient aspect of the architecture in the Changdeokgung Palace Complex is that nature was an integral component. In other words, nature plays an active role as a background for the building constructed. Major buildings in the palace building complex can be categorized into, firstly, official quarter, Injeongjeon, the main hall, where major ceremonial events took place. King's office quarter, Seonjeongjeon, King's main office for daily business, and Gwalegwaksa, the office complex for various court officials for supporting the king in governing the country. And residential quarter, which include Hijeongdang, the king's quarter, Daejojeon, the queen's residence, and Donggung, the crown prince's residence. There are service areas for them as well. In addition, Yeongeongdang in Hwon, the rear garden area, and Nakseonje near Donggung, both of which were added at later times in history, serve as meaningful link between the past and the present. A certain symbolic sequence is involved in entering the palace complex and its major quarters. The area one finds oneself upon entering through Donhwamun, the main gate to the palace complex, is an outer court. From here, one proceeds from west to east and crosses Gumcheon, the forbidden stream, symbolically entering an area that is specially protected for the king. Immediately after crossing the stream, one passes through Jinseonmun, a major gate, to reach an inner court. The inner court here is a quadrilateral yard that tapers off towards the far side. One can enter the royal court by passing through Injeongmun or the Injeongjeon gate. From here, one can enter Jojeong, the royal court, and reach Injeongjeon or the main hall, the first and symbolically the most important building of the palace complex. The royal court, a stone-floored outdoor yard in front of the main hall, where important royal ceremonies take place, is an integral part of any main hall in Korean palaces. The main hall and the court sits on the skirts of the mountain. They face the south and are surrounded on their 3 sides by hwerang or open corridors. The second part will be the king's office quarter, Seonjeongjeon, king's main office for daily business, and Gwalegwaksa, the office complex for various court officers for supporting the king in governing the country. The third part will be the residential quarter, which include Hejeongdang, the king's quarter, Daejojeon, the queen's residence, and Donggung, the crown prince's residence. The Changdeokgung Huwon, or the rear garden, features both landscaped plants and man-made ponds and pavilions that are geometrically designed on the one hand, and the original features of the natural setting of the site on the other. The rear garden complex was designed to minimize man-made intervention and to maximize the pleasure of enjoying nature as is through the changing seasons. The smaller the man-made structures, such as pavilions, the greater the appreciation of nature would be. The Changdeokgung rear garden complex can be divided into 4 major areas centered around a stream or pond. Firstly, the Buyongji area with the Buyongjong, the Juhamnu, and the Yeonghwadang pavilions. Secondly, the Aryonji area with the Aryonjong and Gyeohon pavilions. Thirdly, the Gwanlamji area with Gwanlamjong and Seungjaejong, Changdeokgung. And fourthly, the Ongnyucheon stream area with the Soyeam Rock and the Soyejeong, the Taegukjeong and the Cheonghejeong pavilion. Water plays a lead role in the rear garden complex. Along the Ongnyucheon stream area, for example, pavilions were built at various locations, each with a different orientation. While the man-made ponds such as the Buyongjong and Aryonjong were designed in such a way as to reflect their own images in the water. In addition, water played a role of enhancing an open area and creating a tranquil atmosphere. Pavilions were built in various shapes to complement the natural surroundings. The Buyongjong resembles a lotus blossom. The Aryonjong is square-shaped. The Changdeokgung is hexagonal, and Gwanlamjong is in the form of an unfolding fan. They all have two of their legs immersed in water. This can be understood as a means to personify an image of the ancient sages who would seek to cool off during the summer by dipping their feet into a mountain stream's cool water. Ponds were created based on the notion of Cheonwon Jibang, under which it is thought that the sky is round and the earth is square. These design considerations were related to scientific principles that allowed the water to circulate and not stagnate. The relationship between the water and fish is often compared to that of the king and his subject. The nameplate, the Osumun, shows the relationship between water and fish. The Cheonghejeong is noteworthy pavilion found at the innermost area of Ongnyucheon stream. It is built with 4 cylindrical pillars at each corner of a square-shaped wooden floor that is covered with a round thatched roof supported by 8 purlins and 64 rafters. The pavilion is designed in such a way that the structural load is supported by the 4 cylindrical pillars grounded in the present rice paddy known as King's Test rice paddy. In the record, it was also a pond. The pavilion's design is meant to symbolize the relationship between heaven, mankind, and earth, and an awareness of the changing seasons in regards to the rice growing cycle. Unlike the building spaces that are intended to accommodate people's coming and going in an efficient manner, the rear garden areas are meant to encourage one to stroll leisurely around and appreciate ever-changing nature. Small and simple pavilions in the rear garden area are complemented by overhead hanging plaque and julions or pillar tablets with elaborate writings that endowed the small space with great significance. This is Julian, the so-called poetry verses on pillars of Gwanlamjeong. There are 4 remaining 19th century palace residences in Seoul. 2 of them are in Changdeokgung Palace, Yeongyongdang and Nakseonje area. The third one, the Unhyunggung complex, is within walking distance of Changdeokgung. And the last one, Gyeongcheonggung complex, is rebuilt in Gyeongbokgung and completed in December 2007. Yeongyongdang in Changdeokgung is known to represent an upper-class house of the late Joseon period. In the written record, it was built in 1828 by the Crown Prince Hyomeong to hold the Jinjangnye ceremony to celebrate the 40th birthday of his mother, Queen Sunwon, and to present a title for his father, King Sunjo. Jinjangnye was the special ceremony. During the ceremony, court officials present food and wine to the king and queen as a sign of strong royal authority. But the plan in the written record is quite different from the existing building. The study shows that the remaining architecture might have been refurbished or rebuilt in the 1860s during the Gojong time. It was designated as a treasure in 2012 and managed by the Royal Palaces and Tombs Center under the umbrella of the Korea Heritage Service. As for Yeongyongdang, built in the rear garden, one crosses a small stream over a wide stone bridge to reach Jangnangmun, the main gate for Yeongyongdang. The sequence of entering Yeongyongdang is often described as crossing the bridge of ravens and magpies over the Milky Way and entering the Moon Palace. The expression is a reference to a stone sculpture of a cassia tree and 4 toads on a stone base placed at the head of the bridge that leads to the modest residential subcomplex. The sequence of crossing the bridge, passing through the gate, and entering the main space through a yard is similar for both Injeongjeon and Yeongyongdang. But there is a difference in size, role, usage, and status of the spaces. Here, one can see that a unit space of Korean architecture includes a yard encircling the main building and the yard being surrounded by corridors, either open as in the more formal Injeongjeon and the Royal Court, or closed as in more modest Yeongyongdang, or walls regardless of the actual size of the building. Passing through the gate, one finds oneself in a narrow rectangular outer yard. From there, one finds 2 gates, Su-In-mun and Jangnangmun, to the west and east, respectively. The former leads to the Anche, or the inner quarters, or the woman's domain, and the latter leads to Sarangche, or the men's quarter and guest quarter. Anche and Sarangche each has its own yard, and each is surrounded by its own hangak or utilities corridor. Inside the buildings, the inner quarters and the men's quarters are connected. However, in the yard area, they are separated by the low wall with a gate. The buildings were arranged according to the theory of Pungsu. The walls surrounded each courtyard, followed along the lines of Sarangche and Seonhyangje. Therefore, we can point out 2 axes defining the courtyard of Yeongyangdang. Each courtyard slightly elevated area adjusted to each building, and this area forms a rectangular shape. Conclusively, the courtyard and architecture of Yeongyangdang have an intimate relationship that is defined by structural components. Before we go to the Nakseonje area, let us quickly compare the three remained 19th century palace residences until 2077. As I showed you already in the previous slide, new construction of Cheongdeokgung in Gyeongbokgung was completed in 2007. Nakseonje, House of Enjoying Merit Making. Nakseonje in Changdeokgung stands out for its exquisite architecture and views. The Nakseonje complex was a residential complex built in 1847 to 1848 during the reign of King Honjong, the son of the aforementioned Crown Prince Hyo-myung. It was also as a layout of upper-class house with men's quarter and women's quarter. The buildings of Nakseonje, Seokbokgon, and Sugangje are arranged from west to east, and a long servant quarters acts as a wall, collectively forming the Nakseonje complex. Since Queen Myeonghun, the wife of Honjong, was not bear an heir, Honjong could take a concubine by the name of Gyeongbin. King's concubine's quarter, Seokbokgon, was situated between King Honjong's space, Nakseonje, and King's grandmother's bedchamber, Sugangje, so that the king's concubine could wait on the king with his grandmother at a close distance so as to fulfill her duty. But unfortunately, Honjong passed away after about 20 months. The Nakseonje was first built for Honjong's reading and painting space in an isolated corner at Changdeokgung Palace. The following year, the Seokbokgon was built for the concubine, and Sugangje was refurbished for the king's grandmother. This is the backyard of the Nakseonje. In the area higher than terraced flower beds in the backyard, there are pavilions scattered around, ranging from the pavilions built in the 17th century before the construction of Nakseonje to the pavilions built during the Japanese occupation time. There is one pavilion or annex in each area. The Sangnyanjeong, the hexagonal pavilion, is recorded as a hexagonal pavilion is Pyeongwon-ro in the Gungolji record and Donggol-dohyong layout drawings. Sangnyak means climbing to the cool place. Doesn't it look like they were able to carry the books up from the library and read them afterwards? There is also a full moon gate in the west of the Sangnyanjeong pavilion. On the wall of full moon gate, people can see auspicious patterns, grapes, and herbs of elixir engraved. It is prayer for healthy longevity and fertility. The Hanjeongdang, an annex building believed to have been built after 1917, uses glass instead of window paper, showing that it is a modern house. Hanjeong means leisurely and quietly, and it is a building with the greatest number of Juryeon poetry verse on the pillars after Yeongyangdang and Nakseonje. Although people cannot visit it, Chiwunjeong, behind the Sugangje, has a spatial composition that is in line with the pavilions of the southern region, where are known for their poetry and prose literature. Nakseonje complex was used by the Joseon royal family until 1989. The complex was opened to the public for the first time in 1996 after many years of restoration. In addition, the palace residential and office buildings have three spatial functional components: chamber or room, wooden floor hall, and raised wooden floor hall. In a properly oriented building, Daecheong, with its wood floor, is the area in which the cool air from the terraced flower beds in the backyard and the heat from the front yard intersect to provide an agreeable space to the inhabitants in the heat of the summer. Let's compare two main gates to the residences. There are nameplates hanging on them with the same name, Changnak. Enjoy the pleasure forever. That brings me to the end of my presentation. To sum up, ahead of the main topics, the following was reviewed to understand why people built this kind of architecture traditionally in this country. Korea's natural and social environment, traditional Korean garden and pavilions, and World Heritage Site and Korea National Heritage, and an overview of the key aspects of a spatial organization and some of its symbolic significance were reviewed. Firstly, the palace building, nature as an architectural background. Secondly, the symbolic, the practical, and the physical layout of spaces. Thirdly, the rear garden as minimal architectural intervention. And lastly, understanding of 19th century Joseon Palace residence, Hanok. In conclusion, this presentation suggests better understanding of the spatial organization of the Changdeokgung Palace complex. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.